This is a 17-year-old laptop which belonged to a friend of mine who was going to get rid of it, but we thought we'd see if we could bring it back to life. Originally, I think it had Windows XP. This laptop is made by a company called Evesham or Eversham. I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it, but it's well past its expiry date, and it's been sitting in his cupboard somewhere for a very long time, so we thought we'd see if we could revive it. As you can see, it's got the Windows XP logo, so it's around the 2005 era, especially around the period when laptops started to have these menu buttons on the side, whether it's the web browser button or the email button, or the volume buttons, and so forth. So what we thought is we'd try and bring this device back to life and see if we could install an operating system on it. Initially, I tried installing a Windows operating system, but that didn't work. Then I tried some newer Linux operating systems. That didn't work. That USB that's actually in there now, that's a Linux USB. It's an operating system called Knoppix, which is one of the versions of Linux. So let's see if we can get that installed and hopefully bring it back to life with that. So as you can see, I've got two hard disks plugged in. The black one is the operating system, which I'm going to boot, and the green one, that is the one where I'm going to install the operating system on, because the hard disk wasn't working. So the internal hard disk wasn't working, unfortunately. So we'll now go to the installation wizard, and we'll try and install this to the flash drive. So once I click on OK, I should get a menu regarding the hard disks. As you can see, I've got that USB device which was plugged in. I'll click OK on that, and that should then decide to or hopefully start to format the USB drive. Once we get the USB in a particular format that we want, I'm just going to leave it at no and click OK. It should start partitioning it and then installing the operating system. I'll forward this bit up a bit because it took a while. This is an old device. Now, Knoppix is an old operating system. It hasn't been updated for a very long time. It's asking us to hopefully give this device a reboot in a moment. This operating system, I think, was last updated maybe in the late 2010s, 11s, around then. But it is a version that's compatible with older machines, so that's why I used it. Once I installed it, I believe I gave this a reboot and then decided to do an update on it. Even though, to be honest, whatever updates it gets is still going to be pretty old. If you happen to have an older device, then do use a newer version of Linux if you can. The internet speed test was a struggle initially, and then after that, I think when I did it again, it started to work a little bit faster. That is because it's probably got an ancient Wi-Fi adapter in there that's really struggling with the newer access points. So my access point is a newer one, my Wi-Fi access point, but it did manage to do 3.5 meg download and 6+ upload. Web browsing was fairly okay, so a device like this, I wouldn't expect it to do any more than just basic browsing and just basic usage. There's tons of applications on here, but I'll show you one of the games. There is a game called Extreme Tux. I just click on Extreme Tux Racer. This is a classic Linux game. It's the Linux Penguin. You'll see it in a moment. This bit here, the graphics really struggled. So this has got Compiz enabled, which is the graphical effects for Linux. And when I try to minimize the web browser, you can see what's happening. The graphics is really struggling. And hopefully this should, in a moment, load the Extreme Tux Racer game. Nowadays, the game isn't installed by default in the Linux operating systems, where you can download and install it. It is a fairly old game. I think it's around maybe 20 years old. Once you install it, you can actually just play the game. It is a fun game to play, but you can choose between the penguin and this other character here. The penguin is the famous one for the game because it's the Linux icon, or I guess the Linux mascot. Let's see what happens when we start. It should play fairly smoothly, even though it did struggle with other graphical effects. You can see the game's running pretty smoothly. It's one of those games where it's just a one player, kind of similar to the Mario Kart and so forth. Well, I guess it's a slightly older version of the Mario Kart. Now, at the end of it, you'll notice that the graphics is still struggling a little bit, but hence if you do have an older device, do try and install one of the newer versions of Linux that are a little bit lighter, because Linux has multiple versions. I think Puppy Linux is one of the well-known ones for being light and compatible with older devices while still being slightly modern and maintaining updates and patches and so forth. Whereas Knoppix, this one's really old, but it is one of the I think it's the first operating system I used back in 2004 when I first learned about Linux. So there it is, the laptop is being revived. I could have possibly, as I said, used a more newer version of Linux with more updates, but if you happen to have an older device and you just want to use it for basic web browsing and so forth, then you can definitely revive it. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you in the next one.